Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for September 1st. 1st of September. Here we are. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I am here today to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 23 live feeds. We're going to get into it all. It was day 56 in the house, and, we had a day. It was a day full of days, full of things. Um, Primarily, though, a lot of talk about long-term strategy here in the house today. So that is something worth considering, worth hearing about. So this is going to be an important update, I think, for the long-term sort of view of the game as we look at what we have here moving forward. Once the cookout gets to 6, a lot of plans being made. So stay tuned as we go through it all. You can, of course, hang out with me here. I am on my own today, so if you want to ask some questions toward the end, we can maybe get some of those in. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about everything that happened yesterday on these feeds. So we started the day with Kyland and Azza talking more about which of Claire or Alyssa should go home next week. There's a lot of these conversations happening. So just to set the scene here for the week, for what's happening here on the day, of course, you have uh, Claire as the coin of
Destiny.
holder is the HOH this week. She nominated Kyland and Sarah Beth. Hannah won the veto. She used it on Xavier, which means that Kyland and Sarah Beth are on the block together. Sarah Beth is going home. She does not know for sure that she's going home, but she does not feel particularly safe. As far as everyone has basically told her, she is, she is the pawn, and Kyland is the target, but and people aren't working overtime to help convince her of that because why would they? In fact, there are going to be a few conversations throughout the day where they talk about should we blindside her? Should we not tell her about this at all? And they agree that they want to tell her. They do want to let her know that this is going to be that she's going to be going home. So, um, so that is I apologize for the focus here. So that's sort of what they're talking about the Sarah Beth eviction. They do plan on telling her at some point, but it's not going to be a huge thing. It's actually not my focus. It's actually it's StreamYard. Well, what are you going to do, StreamYard? Um, I apologize for the lack of StreamYard quality at this time. Oh, here we go. Starting to get maybe a little better. Maybe a little better. Um, so uh, anyway, so Sarah Beth's going home. She's going to be told, just not quite yet. And we have the rest of the conversations that are going to be happening here are about who's going to be going home next week. What is it? Is it Claire or is it Alyssa? Who is going to win HOH next week? Who should win HOH next week? That's one of the things that they need to figure out here for the week. And then, of course, moving into the end game. What is the end game shaping up to look like? A lot of these conversations are going to go on here. Yeah, it's the alpha energy that just the StreamYard can't handle it. It's just there's nothing to dilute it here in the podcast, so it's just can't handle all the alphaness. So Kylan talks to Azza, and he is going to they're going to talk about which of Claire or Alyssa should go. Kylan thinks that Claire should go. The argument is, and this is one that Hannah came up with, that if there is a battle back, that they need Claire gone because if Derek X is going to come back into the game, he's going to be able to work with Claire, and that's not good. They need Alyssa in the game if that happens. But if there's not a battle back, that's not the argument, but they're concerned that there is a battle back, and so they think that, or Kylan thinks that Claire should leave. Azah is still more on the side of Alyssa should go. She just thinks that Alyssa is a better competitor. And Kylan does agree that he would prefer if Azah won the HOH. Azah would nominate both Claire and Alyssa, and then the house would decide, aka the cookout would decide as a whole, rather than it just being one person as the HOH. So that's pretty much where they stand there. There's not a ton more that's interesting about Claire versus Alyssa at this point. Again, we have a few different people who have different opinions, but what it's really going to come down to is probably just where the votes lie, because what they're looking to do is have Azah or Big D win. If that doesn't happen, Hannah or Kylan, if they could win, the idea being to just put both Alyssa and Claire on the block, and then the votes will be there to send either one of them home. This will be at the final 8, so there will be 5 votes total. And that means that if it's all cookout votes, you just need 3 to decide. And so if it's Azah, Claire, or Azah, Tiffany, and Hannah, then they could decide to keep Claire, assuming that Big D is the HOH and he puts them both up on the block, or Kylan puts them both up on the block. Or if they can convince Kylan to keep Claire, it may just come down to the votes next week. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But that's basically what's going on there. There's more interesting things happening, though. Claire is going to talk to the cameras.
I finally have some agency here.
Yeah. She's going to talk to the cameras. Claire says, I need to start making moves. I need to start making moves in this game. This is her. Okay, so this is her. She had the coin of destiny. She could nominate 2 people. She could be the anonymous HOH this week. And you've been saying that you need to make moves for the last month, Claire. You finally had some agency. What do you mean you need to make moves? Need to start making moves? No, you need to have started making moves about 4 weeks ago. Claire. She says, I need to either make moves by doing them myself or by convincing other people to do them for me. You mean like how other people convinced you to do the things for them this week? Claire. She says she really wants Xavier to go. She thinks Xavier needs to go. But everyone else seems to want Alyssa, and she'd be okay with Alyssa leaving. Why? Why is that okay? That's not making moves. She says she's not sure that she can trust Hannah. She thinks Hannah might be playing her because and might be pretending to want Xavier out, because she doesn't actually know for sure that Hannah does want Xavier out. She seems concerned that Hannah might secretly want to keep Xavier in the game, but that doesn't make any sense because she obviously needs to take that shot. The shot needs to be taken. So why would she not want to take the shot at Xavier? She kind of goes back and forth about this. And this is where she said, I mean, it's like thanks, like Claire, yes, you have caught this. You're correct. Hannah is playing you, and she doesn't want Xavier out. Great job. You figured it out. Now what are you gonna do about it? Nothing.
Making myself laugh.
Okay. Hannah's going to talk to Claire. They talk more about the nominations. Hannah says that she thinks that Alyssa and Kylan should go up on the block. And if one of them comes down, you put up Big D. Claire's like, what? Why Big D? Why not Xavier? Hannah. And Hannah's like, oh yeah, we could do Xavier. So that's fine. And it's like, okay, this is Claire. There's probably red flags going off here, but it's too late to do anything about it. They talk about a potential battle back, and Claire says, well, it doesn't have to be next week, because they could do it with 5 people from the jury battling back to come in. If they did it next week, like after next week's eviction, meaning that there would be 4 people battling back to come back in. And Hannah says, no. They wouldn't do it with 5 people. Claire's like, really? What? They haven't done it with 5 people? She's no, they've never done it with 5. They've done it with 5 people pre-jury, never post-jury. They've never had a 5-person jury battle back. She's like, really? Nope, never. I need to start like making a list of things that Hannah says with complete confidence that are also wrong. Like she's forgotten about Big Brother 18 or something. So they do have eventually come around to talking about like, okay, well, there might be a battle back, or there might not be a battle back. This is something that Tiffany had mentioned because of COVID. They might not do a battle back, right? And Hannah's like, thinking about that, I think it does make sense. Why would they risk having a battle back, bringing somebody back in to potentially like infect the house when they've come this far with no COVID? Maybe it does make sense that there's no battle back. And so Hannah goes to Tiffany and they discuss this idea. Hannah's like, again, she kind of, they talk about the idea like, well, maybe there won't, talking about Claire versus Alyssa. What if there is no battle back? And Tiffany's like, I really don't think there is. She's like, yeah, it does make sense that maybe there's no battle back because of COVID. And that if that were the case, if there's no battle back, then we should keep Claire. We that's what we should do. And Tiffany's like, yes, that's what I've been saying. But she's like, but if there is a battle back, we need Alyssa. It's like, but I don't think there is a battle back. And so they talk about that more. And so it seems as though Hannah may be more on board with keeping Claire than before because she's finally considering the idea that perhaps that there is no battle back. Okay. Tiffany has some long-term plans she wants to talk about, and this is the more interesting part of the day, the particularly interesting part of the day. Tiffany needs to figure out her end game. She's been working on this for a while, and she really starts to get into it with Hannah. She says, I know we all hate Kyland, but if Kyland is the first to go of the 6, they're coming for me next, right? And Hannah says, yeah, you're right. We can't let Kyland be the first to go once we hit 6. And you're right also that we can't let Xavier get too far out. We can't let Xavier get to Final 4. He will be able to win at Final 4. We won't be able to get him out. We can't let Xavier get that far. So here's the boot order. Hannah thinks Big D is ideally the first person gone. And Tiffany's like, yes, exactly. He's already got his money. Get Big D out of here. Get him out of here. Then Hannah says, let Xavier win and take out Kyland. Boom, Kyland gone. Then when Xavier can't compete at 4, if that's the case, then they take out Xavier. Right? Her, Azza, and Tiffany take out Xavier, and then the 3 of them make it to the final 3. Hannah, Azza, and Tiffany. That's Hannah's plan. And Tiffany's like, that's a great plan. It happens to be the exact plan that I pitched to you weeks ago that you were against, but now you're with it. So yeah. So that's the plan. Get to the final 3. Tiffany, Hannah, Azza. And then Hannah says, I'd even throw the first part of the final 3 HOH to you, Tiffany, the endurance part. and then I can beat Azza in part 2, and then the two of us face off in part 3. We're taking each other. Game over. This is looking pretty. This is sounding pretty good. This is exactly what Tiffany has been wanting to hear. This is what she's been trying to build for a while here. And the fact that Hannah is willing to turn on Xavier, or at least seemingly willing to at this point, is very, very key for Tiffany and for Hannah, quite frankly. So, new plan, new final plan. I was literally just talking on the roundtable last night about how I felt like the long-term plans were not particularly locked in. And you know, this happened actually like right before the roundtable, so I had just missed it prior to the roundtable happening. But basically, this is a solid plan, and this is something that I could see happening genuinely. But this is not. This is Hannah's plan. It's pretty close to what Tiffany wants. It's not exactly what Tiffany wants, and we'll find out exactly what Tiffany wants in just a second. Hannah's also going to talk to Alyssa, and Alyssa is going to talk to Hannah, I should say. Alyssa wants to propose that, hey, why don't we work together? And this is a great conversation for Hannah, and I think from Hannah. Hannah using the veto on Xavier has paid off really well when it comes to Alyssa in exactly the way that she had hoped. It pissed off Kyland, but who cares? It has really helped with Alyssa. So Alyssa is approaching Hannah to work with her now because she feels like she can potentially trust Hannah. She thinks that the two of them, plus Xavier, if they can take out Kyland next week, then that will leave the house in an interesting position, right? It'll be herself and Xavier. It'll be Tiffany and Claire. It'll be Azza and Big D. And then Hannah can join Alyssa and Xavier, and they can form a trio. And they can work together as a 3. Now, Hannah loves this idea. She says, I love this idea. I do think that Xavier would pick you over me, though, Alyssa. And this is I like this. This is a clever way of like, you know, I say this all the time, but in Big Brother, somebody proposes something to you. You can sometimes tell how interested a person is in your idea by, I mean, there are a lot of different ways, but one of the tells that somebody's not really interested in what you're saying is that they just agree to it. No questions asked. Yes, sounds great. Love it. And they don't spend a lot of time workshopping the idea, discussing the idea. They're just saying yes to get you out of their hair, to convince you that they're cool with it. And then, you know, they don't care anymore. That's one of the problems that Alyssa had with her own pitches, that she would not spend enough time actually talking about them, and it didn't really seem like they were genuine pitches. But Hannah says, you know, she brings up potentially, you know, Xavier would pick you over me. I know this. The especially great part about that, what she says there, is that Xavier would not pick Alyssa over Hannah, and Hannah knows this. But she says that Alyssa says, well, you can bring in like a 4th. Why don't you bring in somebody as well? And then it's, you know, 4 people, you have a person as well. And Hannah says, I would love to bring Tiffany in. And she goes, perfect. That makes sense to me. It's the 4 of us then, a 4-person thing. Alyssa loves her 4-person alliances with her, you know, partner, whether it's Christian or Xavier at this point. And she says, okay, so it's a 4-person alliance, or whatever. It's Alyssa, Xavier, Hannah, and Tiffany. That's perfect. They go after Kyland next week. They put Claire on the block next to Kyland because Claire is Tiffany's partner. That means they're going to have to isolate Tiffany, meaning take out Claire at some point and at least use her as a pawn next to Kyland next week. So this conversation accomplishes a few things at a time. One is that if Alyssa wins next week or at 7, she will hopefully keep Hannah and Tiffany protected. And 2, if she wins next week, she will put Claire on the block next to Kyland. Then they can send Claire home. And things are working out quite nicely. quite nicely here for Hannah when it comes to Alyssa. The move to use the veto on Xavier definitely paying off. So Tiffany talks to Kyland, and this is when things get again a little more interesting. Tiffany tells Kyland about she says, hey, we get to that 6. I'm worried because I'm a big target. I know you're a big target. I know that if you go first from the 6, I'm next. I need you in this game. And what I think we should do is target Big D first. I think we should take out Big D first from the 6. Kyland agrees. He says, yes, I agree with that plan. This is interesting to me because this is absolutely not a good idea for Kyland. I mean, Big D is Kyland's best asset in this game. Big D, I do not think would turn on Kyland. Certainly not, for a lot of the people in the cookout. And Big D is a great person for Kyland to sit next to in the end. But he seems to be on board with this. Genuinely. He says, yes, I agree. Kyland says, I genuinely think that Big D beats all of us in the end. Which is not exactly what Tiffany was shooting for. Tiffany was saying Big D needs to go because if he makes it to 3, everyone will take Big D to the end. Kyland says, well, that's the problem. Big D will beat us all. And Tiffany's like, yes? He's like, yes. Kyland has said this before. He said it to Big D. I thought he was playing Big D. It's possible he's not. It's possible he genuinely believes this, but I mean, he is like very very gung ho about allowing Big D to be the target here, which is interesting to me. Now again, Kyland could be lying in this conversation in a few different ways. He could be pretending to be willing to let Big D go. He could be doing all these sorts of things. We always say this, but usually when people have these kinds of conversations, they are, for the most part, pretty genuine about them. And I will say that my own personal read on Kyland is that he was being pretty genuine in this conversation. I think that, I mean, especially like having watched him with Sarah Beth a lot, having watched him with other people, if I've been translating Kyland for a long time, I feel like this conversation was pretty genuine from Kyland. And I think that he may genuinely be willing to let Big D go at 6, which I think would be a big mistake. Because I mean, he's honestly, he's even saying like, you should win at 6 and take that shot at Big D. Now he does want Ozzy to go as well, and he's going to bring that up. But anyway, let's get through this conversation. Kyland says after Big D leaves, it has to be Xavier. Xavier has to go next. They both say everybody definitely loses if they sit next to Xavier. That is for sure, right? So the plan would be Big D first, then Xavier. Now remember, Hannah's plan was Big D, then Kyland from Xavier. Tiffany is now talking to Kyland about Big D and then Xavier by Kyland, which of course is pinning the two of them against each other has always been the thing. But where Hannah has a preference for Xavier winning that battle, Tiffany has a preference for Kyland winning that battle. And so she's trying to make sure that he takes out Xavier next, or at least as soon as he can. And so Kyland says, look, I agree. I absolutely think Xavier needs. My only problem is that if we do Big D, then Xavier, that Azza is now in the final 4, and I'm worried that Azza will take a shot at me, and I'm worried, that the women will choose each other over me, essentially. And Tiffany says, no, I'm taking you. You don't worry about that. And we can beat Azza. If we can't beat Azza, then we deserve to lose. It's like, yeah, that's right. That's true. Kylan says that he does think that Xavier will take him to the end because Xavier knows that he can beat Kylan. And Tiffany's like, Kylan, Xavier, you think Xavier's going to take you to the final two? He's like, yeah, I think he would, just 'cause he knows he can beat me. She's like, he can. Why wouldn't he take Azza or Shada or Big D? He can beat them too. He's like, he doesn't want to win against those people. He wants to win against me. And Tiffany's like, okay. And he says, but I don't care. I want him gone. I don't want to have to compete against him. Him being gone before the final four is their best case scenario because, again, they can then win from that point. He's like, you are right. Xavier being out at 5 is the better call because then the two of us can beat Hannah and Azza. And that's a much better place to be than having to rely on Xavier. Now, I feel like this from Kyland is not Kyland feeling like Xavier would definitely take him. It's more Kyland being like, I don't need to take out Xavier. I'm not scared of Xavier. I've convinced Xavier to take me to the end because I am worthy of him, beating me in the final two. However, for my own game, it's a better path to take Xavier out even earlier. Not that I need to, because I'm a mastermind and I'm in control of everything, but because I choose to, I am getting rid of Xavier at 5. And so Tiffany says, Kylan, she says, you do not have to worry about me. If we get to that 4, I am taking you to the end. We are, again, the 2 biggest targets, and we've played similar games, Kylan. Except you've won more. That's fine. But it would be a good final 2. And he says, I agree. He says, and here's the thing. When I think about like, if I do lose, I would so much rather lose to you, Tiffany, than to Xavier. If Xavier won, it would be because of his exceeding likability. It's nothing else. I would so much rather lose to you. It just feels different to lose to you, Tiffany. And she says, same. I would much rather lose to you as well here. They then go over jury votes. He's like, I would definitely lose to Xavier. That's the thing. She says, well, not necessarily. She says, and this was interesting. She goes over some of the jury votes. They agree it would be close. She says that she could sway Tiffany, or she could sway Claire and Derek X and maybe even Big D in the jury to vote for Kyland if she wanted to. She says, hey, I can convince those people to vote a certain way in the jury house. So don't effing send me there, Kyland. Just a light threat, I think. Because at first I was like, why are you convincing him that he can beat Xavier when you were just trying to convince him that he couldn't? But then I think that the point was, if you betray me and go with X instead, then you're not getting those jury votes. So that's the conversation. And as I said, I really do think that Kyland is pretty on board with this. Just his body language, the way that he responded to this conversation after the conversation ends, and they're like, so that's the plan. Like, they have not really solidified these end game plans too much yet. Kyland, as Liv points out, Kyland has had multiple instances where he has mentioned that he does, he is actually decently loyal to this final 2 with Tiffany. But there haven't been any plans for like, how do they actually get there until now. And so Tiff has her plan with Hannah now. She has also made this plan with Kyland. And I think Kyland was genuinely excited about this plan. It doesn't mean that he won't change his mind or that things might not change at some point or whatever, right? Because there's still a long way to go, and there's still a lot of time. But to me, this was the excitement of this seems real to me now. This is the plan. This is like, we're going to take out Big D. We're going to take out Xavier. And then from that point forward, I think that Tiffany is right. I think that we can win our way down to the end from there. And if I take, maybe he does, maybe he would betray Tiffany and take somebody else. Who knows? But genuinely, that is, I think, something he's beaming about it. He's smiling. He's clearly excited. He gives her, this big, excited hug. And it's not the same kinds of hugs that he gives Sarah Beth, where he's like, it's like, ooh, like excitement, Anyway, that's my read on this. I think that Kyland is on board to this. After the conversation, Tiffany talks to the cameras. She says, I'm lying to him. I'm not going to take him to the final two. I'm taking Hannah. I'm more loyal to Hannah. I love that girl. It's a shame because I think that I'm telling the truth to him. I think it would be a battle in the final two with Kyland, but I'm taking Hannah. And I feel bad about that. I would feel bad breaking my word to Kyland. It's not something I want to do. Maybe I'd have to throw that final three HOH. But basically, she says genuinely she wants to go to the final three with Kyland and Hannah. She thinks that they will both take her, which I think is actually a pretty good call. And I think she potentially beats both of them, depending on how things work out to get there. And she says, in that spot, maybe I just throw it and let them take me, so I don't have to make that call. So that's what Tiffany is trying to set up. And so this end game is now looking like, right? At 6, it's just a quick update from the roundtable last night. At 6, Tiffany, Hannah, and Kyland right now, seemingly, will be taking a shot at Big D. If that doesn't change. It would not surprise me if the shot at Big D changed to Xavier for at least Kyland, maybe even Tiffany. But as of right now, those three would take the shot at Big D. Xavier would take the shot at Kyland. Azah would take the shot at Kyland. Big D still would take the shot probably at Tiffany. Then at 5, depending on what happens at 6, if Big D goes home, it's going to be everyone's either taking a shot at Kyland or taking a shot at Xavier, depending on who wins. If Hannah wins or if Kyland wins, if Hannah wins or if Azah wins, they're taking the shot at Kyland. Hannah, Azah, Xavier take the shot at Kyland. Xavier, Kyland and Tiffany take the shot at Xavier, something along those lines. It also depends on who had won the previous HOH. But this is, Tiffany is doing, in my opinion, a very good job of trying to maximize her odds here, given the circumstances. Again, this is not her ideal path to the end, getting to the 6 like this. However, she has done, again, in my opinion, a remarkable job of working as many angles as possible within this confined space of the game, and she is working harder than anyone else at this point. And other than, honestly, Hannah, who has definitely stepped up her game. I still think she needs, like, if Hannah talked to the cameras after her conversation with Tiffany, and she told me, the cameras, because I'm the cameras, obviously, hey, I do want to go through with this plan. I do want to go to the final 3 with Azah and Tiffany. However, I plan on cutting Tiffany for Azah because I know that I can beat Azah. Then I'd be like, oh boy, Hannah's a winning contender all of a sudden. But if she actually plans on taking Tiffany, that's a tougher sell for me. But still, I am definitely impressed with the work that Hannah has been putting in here. And really Xavier, who has really been, again, kind of taking a back seat, kind of not being too involved in a lot of these plans. So the plans that he is some of the plans that he has been making have been primarily with the guys and with Hannah. Hannah, now we know, willing to turn on Xavier. Not great for Xavier. And these guys' plans are also not real. Kyland also willing to turn on Xavier. That means that Xavier doesn't really have anyone in the game not willing to turn on him, other than perhaps Big D and Azza, but they are the two least likely to be in power once they hit 6, in my opinion. So things starting to look a little worse for Xavier, although even just getting that one pass at 6 could be enough. If he makes it to 5, he has a chance to win out from there. That's still probably his best bet, but his odds of making it to the end without having to win out are diminishing more and more as we speak. So interesting stuff. I found today to be very interesting. It's unfortunate that again, all of this stuff may end up happening during a triple where it's just gonna speed right through. But we're seeing the planning for it happen right now, and I expect that we'll continue to see more of this. This is a lot more interesting to me than which of Claire or Alyssa will go home next week, because this is genuinely deciding who might win this game and what kind of end game is going to be set up. And it's happening right now, today, day 56. The real start. I mean, again, Tiffany has been working on it for a while. Hannah's been working on it for a little bit. Kyland and Xavier obviously have been doing some of their own things as well. But it really has been solidifying here on day 56, and we'll see where things go from there. So that was most of the day. But we did have, I told you guys I was going to stop with the Kylan and Sarah Beth things. But there was just so much ridiculousness going on last night with their conversations. And I think it could genuinely impact jury management as well. So I've got to tell you guys, I've got to bring this up. I'm sorry. But late at night, Kyland talks to Sarah Beth and he says, I've got a conspiracy theory. Have you ever watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Like the image of the conspiracy theory board. I feel like that person right now. Okay, where's this going? He says, I have a conspiracy theory that there is a secret alliance in this house that has been working together since week 1. And that is, they have turned their emotions off like robots, and that they're playing a team game rather than an individual one. And he says these people, he thinks it's Claire, Alyssa, Xavier, Big D, Azza, and Big D. I don't even remember now. I think Hannah's left out of it, and maybe Big D's left out. I don't remember which one. He thought that Derek X was in it as well. It didn't. What am I saying? He didn't actually think that. Claimed that. Basically, he's saying that there is a secret alliance in this house. He calls them the Illuminati. And he's basically referring to the cookout, but naming the wrong people. Saying that how they probably worked is that they each had people on different teams, and they were maneuvering through in different ways. That because they had people over here, they were able to control the numbers, right? I think that they have been just going through the house, and they're going to be the most successful alliance ever. She's like, that's dumb, Kylan. You're wrong. She says, that makes no sense. These people could not have been working together. Why was Azza so emotional at the start of the game then? Why was she so upset when people went after the Jokers? Explain that, Kylan, with your Illuminati theory. He says, well, how about this? Remember Royal Flush? Well, if most of this alliance was in Royal Flush, who else are they going to target but the Jokers? So maybe Azza was genuinely not happy with the fact that her people had to be targeted, but they still did. And that's why they let her keep Big D, right? To make up for it. He's explaining the cookout, she says, well, if this is true, then we have no chance to win this game. He's like, not necessarily, because we could, I could go to somebody on the outside and explain it to them, band together, and form a resistance and make something happen. And she's like, this, Kylan, you're wrong. This is not true. It's like, what is happening here? What is Kylan doing? I don't understand. I think he's trying to explain, because he'll probably explain in his goodbye message that he'll this might be Kylan's goodbye message. Sarah Beth, I love and adore you. You are amazing. I'm already missing your cuddles. But I have something to tell you. Remember that conspiracy theory I had, that alliance? I'm actually in charge of it. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you. I tried to tell you. But, you know, things had to go the way they had to go. Right? It's got to be something like that. It's got to be. He says they're shaping up to be the most successful alliance ever. 5 people. He says, how is 5 too many to go undetected this long? I don't know. She does not, she thinks this is dumb. She doesn't care about this conversation. She's done with it. He's like, I don't know. Really though, has a group of 5 ever made it this far undetected? Level 6 didn't. They were done in like week 4. You know, like the Grateful, they sucked. She's like, well, I mean, the committee, they were in alliance of 6. It's like, oh, well, well, what did the committee do? She's like, well, they made it really fun. I mean, they made it all the way to the triple before they started cannibalizing themselves. He's like, oh, so they broke up at the triple, and they didn't make it through undetected. She's like, well, they weren't really detected, and they made it all the way up until the triple. He's like, oh, but at the triple. She's like, yeah, but the triple happened at, you know, at like what, like final 9. He's like, oh, so 6 of them made the final 9. So this alliance has already beat. Oh, well, I guess if it's 5 people, well, if they make it to the final 8, so if this alliance makes it to the final 8, then they've broken the committee's record. She's like, well, no, I actually think they did make it to the final 8. So 6 of them made it to the final 8. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because then it was David and then it was Danny, right? And he's like, okay, so but then if they make it to the final 7, the committee made it to the final 7, 6 of 7. For anybody that doesn't remember, and that's when Danny went home after David, and basically what happened is that obviously Cody brought Enzo through to the end so that he would have the win, right? But Kylan is just like so hung up on like, but they're gonna be the most successful. I mean, they're gonna be the most successful. And she said, well, the committee made it so far because each person had like people outside of the alliance, and Cody had made these like separate alliances, and so they were able to control the votes and control the house. And he's like, oh, well, that's yeah, well, you know, but this alliance would probably be better than that, right? It's like, so they all made it to the final 8. So they would just need to make it to the final 7, and then they would be the most successful alliance, right? And the feed's cut at this point, and they come back like 10 minutes later, and he is still in the middle of explaining, like, so this is how that strategy worked. And so then when they had these people, it would be like this. And he said, And so they're going to beat the committee's record. Boom. And she's like, Kyland, if you're right about this, you're a super genius. He's like, you didn't already know? It's like, but I think you're wrong. Okay. All right. We'll see. We'll see. What is it? He then wants to know, so Sarah Beth, what do you think the odds are between the two of us right now? Which one of us is going to go home? What do you think? I don't know, Kylan. Come on, no, tell me. What do you think? Like 50-50, 80-20, 75-25? What do you think? I have no idea, Kylan. He's like, well, I think, for me, I'm kind of thinking like I was at like 50-50, and then I had a conversation with Tiffany, and then I was at like 80-20, that I would go home, and then I had a conversation with Chada, and now I feel like it's like 75-25. And then the veto was used, and so I'm kind of feeling like maybe yeah, like 65-35 for me to go home. And she's like, Kylan, I don't know. Nobody's telling me anything. Everybody could be lying. I really don't know. It's like, what's this man doing? Um, so that's pretty much it. I mean, we'll see. I'm so curious to know what Sarah Beth's reaction is going to be when she finds out. I'm desperate to see what Kylan's goodbye message is. Is he going to say I run the Illuminati? Like, is that what he's going to say in his goodbye message? Because that would be absurdly amazing. And who knows? Who knows? That's pretty much the day here. And there's not too much else to talk about, but I genuinely, I thought it was a very interesting day. I hope you guys have enjoyed this update. Any questions in the chat before we really start to wrap up here and move on? Of course, tonight we're gonna have an episode. I'll be watching the episode with you guys live, and then after the episode, we'll be live with a recap of the episode. So check that out. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 23 live feeds. We'll see if there's any more long-term plans going on in the game. Let's see here. Is it best for Tiffany's endgame to take Derek F out first? That's actually a good question. It's something I forgot to go into, because the plan is to take Big D out first, then Xavier or Kylan. That's an interesting play. Obviously, it's a little riskier because you're giving Xavier another week. You're giving him 1 week of safety that he then can potentially win out from 5. I do think that is something that is very risky. The problem is if you take out Xavier first, then Kylan, why would he take out Big D next? Why wouldn't he take out Azza over Big D? But if you're able to get Kylan to take out Big D first, then you probably can convince him to take out Big D after Xavier at that point, potentially, right? Or you can take out Big D, or you can take out Kylan. So I think that part of it too is that like they even talked about it's scary. It's scary to say that we're going to go against Xavier. But I think taking out Xavier first is probably better. But taking out Big D first is not the worst thing in the world either, especially if you're Tiffany and you're looking to lock Kylan into taking you to the end and you're pretty convinced that you can beat him. Then there's definitely some value in leaving Xavier in here through to the finals, or through the final 6. I mean, what happened with Chada's wrist? I believe she had an accident on the hammock, and so it's wrapped up, or it was wrapped up. I think she took it off and then I think she changed it. I don't remember. But I don't think it's a major injury, but it could theoretically hurt her in any sort of physical competition in the short term. Who is X planning to go to the end with? I believe he plans to go to the end with Hannah. I think that his ideal final three, genuinely at this point, would be Hannah and Big D, in that I think he would take Hannah to the final two at that point, thinking that he could beat her. And if he felt like he couldn't beat her, I'm sure he would take Big D, but I think he probably feels like I can beat Hannah anyway. Might as well take her. She's my little sister. I think that's what he's thinking right now. But he hasn't really talked, again, concrete endgame plans in the same way that Hannah, Tiffany, and Kyland have now at this point. Who wins in Azza, Hannah, final two? I think Hannah has the leg up there for sure. But I don't think it's impossible for Azza to catch up. But as of right now, I think Hannah would take that. At what number do I think Kyland will be evicted? I think, honestly, it could be any one of them. He could go at 6. He could go at 5. Could go at 4. It really depends on who wins the competitions. Kyland is very reliant on the competitions in the same way that Xavier ultimately, seemingly, will be as well. Just for clarification, the Cookout wants Azza to win. Yes, next week, the Cookout would prefer that Azza win the HOH competition, followed basically by Big D, and then either Hannah or Kyland. Hannah did have a conversation with Kyland where she said, I would almost prefer you win it over Azza and Big D at this point, because they seem like they may not put both Alyssa and Hannah and Claire on the block, whereas you would. But again, it's so back and forth. Basically, even Tiffany has talked about potentially winning next week. And so she may not throw it either. And I know that Xavier won't want Kyland to win, so he may not throw it. So all of this talk is probably meaningless. It's just going to come down to the HOH competition. I think a lot of them are going to be trying for a long time. It just may impact, like, if it's, Tiffany and Azza or something like that, they may throw it to Azza, but we'll see. When did the house begin to subtly turn against Xavier? I mean, I don't think it was ever I will say this. I think that there's a way to read the house where it hasn't necessarily turned on Xavier. Other than the fact that Hannah, I mean, yeah, I guess at this point it's pretty concrete. Like, Hannah has said explicitly now she wants Xavier to go at 4, and not to bring him to the final 3. Azza has mentioned that she does. She's over him, but then also maybe not. And Kylan has talked about wanting to take a shot. Tiffany has talked about wanting to take a shot. I would say that it's still less that they've turned on Xavier and more that he never fully had them. We talked about Xavier as a front runner because it seemed like they were going to let him through too many weeks at the end, and that he was going to be able to win out from that point. He never had anything fully locked in. So it's less, in my opinion, that they turned on his plans, and more that he never had any plans, and now other people are making plans, and he's being left behind because he's not making any real plans, or at least not enough, which is, in my opinion, again, always been his problem in the game. But it does not mean that he's out of the game. There's still a lot of time left. He still has some good relationships with Hannah, with Azza, with Big D. And if he does turn it on and he starts making more plans and he starts, pitching his own final end game plans, that we could see something happen. But in terms of when did this happen, when did people really start to talk about Xavier as a target? I would say it was a couple of weeks ago when Tiffany and Xavier had the conversation about Derek X, and Tiffany was trying to convince him that Derek X should stick around, and he was not budging. And he was trying to convince her that Derek X should go, and she was not budging. He won that battle, but she started to work against Xavier after that moment. And she is at this time, in my opinion, again, winning the war. All right. Has there been any more talk about revealing the cookout? They've briefly mentioned it again, like once they hit 7, they may do it, but it's not something that they've fully talked about again yet. Let's see here. is Hannah in the middle of Tiffany, Kyland, and Xavier, Azza, and Big D best position? I do think that Hannah is in the best position to make it to the final three. I think that that she is not going to be targeted by anybody at 6, shouldn't be targeted by anybody at 5, unless she's the one that wins at 6 and does something that somebody doesn't like. But she is, again, in my opinion, the best positioned to make it to the end, to the final 3 at least. And then she has a decent chance to make it to final 2. So her biggest worry, in my opinion, should be, how do I win the game? How do I get the jury votes? How do I get there with somebody that I can beat? So is it even remotely possible to have a Jury America vote back? I'm sure it's possible, but let's not put that out into the world. All right, one more question. Why was X angry last night? So they were having a conversation. I don't remember. Oh, they were doing 2 truths and a lie, and one of Xavier's things was that he like broke a horse or something. And then they started joking about how he's cruel to animals, and he did not appreciate the jokes, and kind of decided to remove himself from the situation. He was not happy about that whole situation. I believe that is how it went down. Is it better for Kyland if Kyland and Xavier work together? It's better for Xavier. It's not better for Kyland. That's the problem. That's because it's been painted that Xavier is able to beat everybody. There's no world where Kyland feels good about going to the end with Xavier, and they don't have the relationship to back it up. Where people were worried about Cody, like getting to the end with Cody and maybe not being able to beat Cody, but they had such a strong relationship with him that they couldn't turn on him. It's not really the same thing here with Xavier. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for joining me here today. Again, I thought this was an interesting day. Very happy to see the sort of like, it's been a while since we've gotten like actual strategy for like the winner of the game, more than just like which of the non-cookout people are going to go next. So I'm excited about the next couple of weeks as they continue to discuss these long-term plans, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with me here. It's always you guys genuinely you make the season more enjoyable for me. Being able to talk with you guys and hang out and discuss all of these things every day here on the updates. I really appreciate all of you that stick through with it. This season it's been great. It's been whether or not you've been enjoying the everyday, the day-to-day, the strategy of the season, whether you love it, whether you hate it, we always have fun here, and I appreciate all of that. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see all of you